Hi all, welcome to Physio Exam Buddy. This video is on the lateral spinothalamic tract or the pain pathway. I recently completed university paper of physiology. The essay asked was a 15-year-old boy present with sudden onset of severe pain around the umbilicus radiating to the right iliac fossa. He also has fever as well as nausea. So this essay is mainly related to the lateral spinothalamic tract or the pain. So the sub-questions asked were: explain the pathways of pain with the help of a neatly labeled diagram. Explain any two theories that explain the basis of this type of pain. That is, you can see here it is a rougher type of pain. So two theories you have to answer. Then explain the supraspinal analgesia mechanism that modulates the pain perception. So these were the sub-questions for this essay. So in this video, we will discuss the answers of these three questions. That is, first of all, we will see about the pathway of the pain, that is the lateral spinothalamic tract, then the theories of referred pain as well as the supraspinal analgesia system. First, about the lateral spinothalamic tract. That is the one which carry not only the pain but also the temperature sensation. And the pain, it is again of two types, that is fast pain is also there as well as slow pain. And the fast pain, it is also known as acute pain, whereas the slow pain, it is also known as second pain or aching pain. And what these are some of the differences between the fast pain as well as slow pain. Fast pain is actually bright, sharp as well as localized, and it causes the activation of A delta fibers or the nociceptors. And this is not felt in the most deeper tissues. For example, pain from the cut on the skin with a knife. That is a classical example for the fast or acute pain. And this is felt within 0.1 second after a painful stimulus is applied. Whereas the slow pain is of dull, intense, diffuse and unpleasant feeling like character. And here the receptors are mainly the C fibers, that is activation of the C fibers occur. And the slow pain can occur both from the superficial area, that is the skin, as well as from the deeper tissues. But this pain begins only after 1 second, that is it takes time to develop and then increases slowly. That is why it is known as slow pain or the second pain. And the pain pathway which carry this fast pain as well as the slow pain differs. The fast pain, it is carried by the neospinothalamic tract, whereas the slow pain that is carried by the paleospinothalamic tract. So if pain pathway is asked, you have to explain both these tracts, that is neospinothalamic tract as well as the paleospinothalamic tract, and this is the diagram you are supposed to draw along with the pain pathway. Now we will see in detail about the pain pathway or the lateral spinothalamic tract. So you know every pathway it should start from the receptors. So the receptors differ in case of fast pain as well as slow pain. So you can see here that the neospinothalamic is more medial one, this one. Okay, so the neospinothalamic tract, the receptor is mainly the free nerve endings of A delta fibers, which is also known as nociceptors. They form the receptor of the neospinothalamic tract which carry the fast pain. Whereas the receptors for the paleospinothalamic, they are the free nerve endings of the C fibers and they form the receptors for the paleospinothalamic tract. So these receptors are mainly located in the superficial layers of the skin as well as in the internal tissues like periosteum, arterial wall, joint surfaces, etc. Then in viscera there is only few pain receptors, and this pain receptor is an example for the classical non-adapting type of receptor. So you have, first of all, while drawing the pathway, you should draw a midline. Then the spinal cord, the central canal should pass through the midline, and you know that the receptors are A delta for neospinothalamic and C for the paleospinothalamic. And the afferent fibers of the fast pain, it is carried by the A delta fibers having a diameter of 2 to 5 micrometers and the velocity of conduction around 12 to 13 meter per second. And the location of the fast pain, it is mainly in the medial division of the dorsal root. Whereas the slow pain, the fibers are mainly unmyelinated C fibers having a diameter of 0.4 to 1.2 micrometers, and the conduction velocity is 0.5 to 2 meter per second, and it is mainly located in the lateral division of the dorsal root. So, from the receptors arises the afferent fibers, that is through A delta as well as C fibers, and they will enter into our first order neuron, which is our dorsal root ganglion. You can see here two ganglions here, one of the neospinothalamic and the second one of the paleospinothalamic. So the first order neuron is the dorsal root ganglion, and the A delta fibers will end in the lamina 1 and 4 of the dorsal root, whereas the C fiber, it will end in the lamina 1 and 2 of the dorsal root. And from the first order neuron arises the second order neuron, that is the neospinothalamic tract from the lamina 1 and 4 of the substantia gelatinosa arises, and for the paleospinothalamic tract, it arises from the lamina 2 and 3 of the substantia gelatinosa. And now what happens to this second order neuron? It will cross to the opposite side at the level of the spinal cord itself, and you can see here that both these tracts will ascend upwards through the lateral column of the spinal cord, and it will enter into the medulla as the spinal lemniscus. So the crossing is very important. You have to draw at the level of spinal cord itself, and that too in front of the gray matter through the white matter, and it have to reach into the lateral column of the spinal cord, and from the lateral column it will ascend into the medulla as the spinal lemniscus. And from the medulla arises the third order neuron in the thalamus, and from here the paleospinothalamic as well as the neospinothalamic have different tracts. We will see first about the neospinothalamic tract. The neospinothalamic tract will enter into the postroventral nucleus of the thalamus, which constitute the third order neuron, and from there the fibers are sent to the internal capsule and then into the corona radiata, and finally the fibers will end in the primary sensory area, which is area number 3, 1 as well as 2 in the postcentral gyrus. And regarding the fiber arrangement in the tract, you can see here that from medial to lateral, the cervical fibers are located in the medial portion, then the thoracic fibers, then the lumbar fibers, and finally the sacral fibers on the laterally. So this is how the fiber arrangement occurs in the lateral spinothalamic tract. Next, about the neurotransmitter. For glutamate, for the neospinothalamic tract, that is the one which is carrying fast pain, the neurotransmitter is an excitatory one, that is the glutamate. Whereas in case of paleospinothalamic tract, the neurotransmitter for the slow pain, that is the substance P. Now we will see about the paleospinothalamic pathway. Majority of the fibers of the paleospinothalamic, they terminate in the brainstem areas, and they will send the fibers into the reticular nucleus of the medulla pons as well as midbrain, then tactile areas of the midbrain and the periaqueductal gray region. And from these brainstem areas, the fibers are then finally going into the intralaminar as well as the ventrolateral nucleus of the thalamus, then hypothalamus, as well as the adjacent basal regions of the brain. So that is how the paleospinothalamic tract ends. So you have noticed the first question was draw and label all the pathways of the pain from the body. So we have finished the pain pathway from the rest of the body except the face, that is through our lateral spinothalamic tract. So whether the answer is complete? No. the answer will be complete only if you draw the pain pathway from the face also. So how the pain is transmitted from the face area into the brain? It is with the help of the trigeminal pathway. So along with the lateral spinothalamic tract, you are supposed to draw this trigeminal pathway also along with this answer for the first question. So we will see the trigeminal pathway carrying the pain. Again, the receptors are our pain receptors, that is the nociceptors, and it is carried by the trigeminal pathway. So from the face, the afferent fibers are the trigeminal nerve, and from the trigeminal nerve, the fibers will enter into the trigeminal ganglion, which forms the first order neuron. And from the trigeminal ganglion, the second order neurons are given to the spinal nucleus of the trigeminal nuclei. So this from the trigeminal ganglion, the fibers are sent to the trigeminal nuclei, and this trigeminal nuclei actually has three parts. The first one is the mesencephalic part, which carry the sensation proprioception, whereas the second part is the primary sensory trigeminal nuclei, which carry the touch as well as the pressure sensations, and the third one is a spinal nucleus of the trigeminal nuclei, which is related to the pain as well as temperature. So in this video we are dealing with the pain from the face. So the fibers from the pain receptors first go into the trigeminal nerve, and it will be going into the trigeminal ganglion, and from there it is going into the spinal nucleus, that is the third marked nucleus, which forms a second order neuron, and then it will cross into the opposite side. So you have to draw a midline here. So the crossing to the opposite side occurs, and then it will enter into the trigeminal lemniscus, and from the trigeminal lemniscus arise the third order neuron, which pass on to the postroventral nucleus of the thalamus, finally ending into our primary sensory cortex, that is the area number 3, 1 as well as 2. So that is about the trigeminal pathway. So this is the second pain pathway you are supposed to draw for the first question. Now we are moving on to the second question. So at least you have to explain the two theories related to this type of pain. So here the pain explained in the scenario is the referred pain, which is a characteristic feature of the visceral pain. So what are the mechanisms of referred pain? You have to answer under three headings, that is dermatomal rule is the next, a convergence theory is the, and next is about a facilitation theory. What is this dermatomal rule? This visceral pain, it is referred to a structure that developed from the same embryonic segment of the dermatome as the structure in which the pain originates. So, the diaphragmatic pain, it will be referred to the tip of the shoulder because both originate from the same dermatome or supplied by the same dermatome, that is the C2 to C4 level of the phrenic nerve. Again, pain in the heart will be felt in the left upper arm because again of the same dermatome from the C3 to T5 level. So this is the diagram you are supposed to draw along with the dermatomal rule. That is, any pain from the somatic structure or from the visceral area, it will enter into the spinal cord through our dorsal root ganglion, which is a first order neuron, and they enter as the spinothalamic tract and then to the brain. But these structures, these visceral pain, which is referred to a structure, will also develop from the same embryonic segment or the dermatome as the structure in which the pain originates. Next theory is about convergence theory. So what is this convergence theory? Again, the pain which is carried from the superficial somatic structure or from the visceral discus, it is carried into the brain through our spinothalamic tract, that is the lateral spinothalamic tract. So here a convergence occurs here, that is a convergence of the peripheral as well as visceral pain fibers which carry from the superficial as well as from the deep structure. So the convergence of the peripheral and visceral pain fibers occur on the same second order neuron, that is substantia gelatinosa of Rolandi, and from there they project as a common fiber into the brain. So that is another theory which is related to the referred pain. And the last theory of referred pain is the facilitation theory. Here also the fibers from the visceral organs, they give the collaterals to the neurons coming from the cutaneous region. You can see here, that is, you have to draw a collateral between the fibers from the visceral organ and the fibers from the cutaneous region. And this is a classical example for the subliminal fringe effect, which is a property of the synapse. And from there again, the continuation of the spinothalamic tract happens. So this is the diagram you are supposed to draw along with the facilitation. Now we are moving on to the answer of the third question, that is how the modification of the pain occurs at the spinal as well as supraspinal level. And another name for this modification, it is the pain suppression systems in the brain as well as the spinal cord. And you have to explain this answer under three headings, that is descending pain inhibiting system, second one is the gate control mechanism, and the third one is the stress analgesia. So first about the descending analgesic system. This is the diagram for the descending analgesic system. This descending analgesic system includes three major components. First one is the neurons from the periaqueductal gray. This is the periaqueductal gray as well as the periventricular areas of the mesencephalon and the upper pons. They forms a part of the midbrain. So the first component is the periaqueductal gray as well as the periventricular areas of the mesencephalon as well as the upper pons surrounding the aqueduct of the cilius and portions of the third and fourth ventricle. This form the first component of the descending analgesic system, and from this area the neurotransmitter secreted is the enkephalins. So neurons from these areas will send the signals to the area number 2. And the area number 2, it includes this one. This is the raphe magnus nucleus, which is situated in the lower pons as well as the upper medulla, and it also includes a nucleus reticularis paragigantocellularis, again located laterally in the medulla. And both these nucleuses, they secrete the neurotransmitter serotonin. And from these nuclei, that is from the raphe magnus nucleus as well as from the nucleus reticularis paragigantocellularis, the second order neurons, they are transmitted down the dorsal columns in the spinal cord. So you can see here that from these nucleus, that is nucleus raphe nucleus as well as from the nucleus reticularis paragigantocellularis, you can see here that the second order new signals, they are transmitted down the dorsal columns into the spinal cord. And the third portion of the descending analgesic system, that is a pain inhibitory complex, which is located in the dorsal horn of the spinal cord. And at this point, all the analgesic signals can be blocked before it is relayed into the lateral spinothalamic tract. So you can see here that this central analgesic or descending analgesic system, it is actually synapsing to our lateral spinothalamic tract itself at the dorsal horn of the spinal cord. So this is our lateral spinothalamic tract, which carry the pain fibers, both the fast pain as well as the slow pain, and entering into the dorsal horn of the spinal cord. So this descending analgesic system, they send the fibers into the pain inhibitory complex, which is located in the dorsal horn of the spinal cord. So at this point, the analgesic signals that is coming through the lateral spinothalamic tract get blocked by our descending analgesic system, that is coming from the periaqueductal gray, periventricular area as well as the nucleus raphe magnus. And please remember that the neurotransmitter from the periaqueductal gray and the periventricular area, it is the enkephalins, and the neurotransmitter from the nucleus raphe nucleus, it is the serotonergic neuron. And finally they will end into the third order, that is the pain inhibitory complex, which is located in the dorsal horn of the spinal cord. Again, this one is again encephalinergic interneuron. So the analgesia system will block the pain signals at this initial entry point of the spinal cord itself. So this lateral spinothalamic tract enters the spinal cord through the dorsal horn. At this entry point itself, our descending analgesic system will come and block the pain signals at this initial entry point itself. That is about the descending analgesic system. Next is about the gate control theory. This theory was put forward by scientists named Melsack as well as Waller. So what is this gate control theory? Means it mainly includes the modulation of the pain at the spinal level. So this descending analgesic system means it is actually the modulation of the pain occurring by the supraspinal level. So you know that the dorsal column, that is the one which carry the touch sensation, also enter the spinal cord through the dorsal horn of the spinal cord itself. So whenever there occurs any touch stimuli or tactile stimuli, it will be carried by our A beta fibers, which will send the collateral from the dorsal column tract into the termination of the pain nerve endings at the substantia gelatinosa. So this is the dorsal column tract which carry the touch fibers. They will send the collateral to our lateral spinothalamic tract which carry the pain fibers, and this collateral will end at the substantia gelatinosa of Rolando. And this is a classical example for presynaptic inhibition of pain. And this gate control theory have certain clinical applications. That is, first one is acupuncture as well as counter irritant application, and again transcutaneous electric nerve stimulation TENS. All these things uses this gate control theory. That is, whenever you apply a touch in the area near the pain, this touch will actually block the transmission of the pain through the lateral spinothalamic tract by presynaptic inhibition. That is about the gate control theory. Next one is the stress analgesia. You might have heard that soldiers wounded in the heat of the battles, they may not feel pain during the battle time, but after the battle they will feel the pain. Like that, touching or shaking any injured area, it will actually decreases the pain of the injury. Again, stimulation with an electric vibrator at the site of the pain also gives some relief. So all these are primarily due to inhibition of the pathways in the dorsal horn gate by the stimulation of a large diameter touch pressure afferents, which is basically the gate control theory of the pain. And the same mechanism happens in the efficacy of the counter irritants also. So that is about the most commonly asked essay question related to the pain. So please study the diagrams, go through all the sub questions of this essay. Thank you.